Hey guys, this is going to be a brief history of the Pokemon trading card game from its inception all the way through to today, which if you're watching this in the future is 2022. Now I'm only going to be talking about the English releases because my Japanese is terrible and I can only barely speak English as it is, but the TCG did start in Japan in 1996 and made its way over to English-speaking countries in 1999. December 98 for the US, but the rest of us caught up pretty quickly. And originally, it was published by a company called Wizards of the Coast, who are also known for publishing Magic the Gathering. Now, super speedy crash course for anyone who has no idea how the game works. Skip ahead to this time in the video if you already know how to play. So, you got two players, both have a deck of 60 cards. The deck is made up of Pokemon, who have a HP stat and different attacks. If you played the video games, this should all seem pretty familiar so far. We also have trainer cards, which do all kinds of different things, like healing your Pokemon or forcing your opponent to switch out their Pokemon. These are kind of like the items in the video games. The part where things start to differ quite a bit are the energy cards. We'll get to how they function in a second, but the way the game starts is you flip a coin to see who goes first, both draw 7 cards, and put another 6 cards face down as prize cards. Then you take turns drawing 1 new card per turn until someone wins. Now there's 3 ways to win the game. If your opponent runs out of cards, you win. If your opponent runs out of Pokemon, you win. But the main objective, and the way that most games are won, if you collect all of your prize cards, you win. To get a prize card, you gotta knock out one of your opponent's Pokemon. Do that 6 times, and you win the game. Each player has 1 Pokemon in the active spot, and can have up to 5 Pokemon on the bench. Think of this like the 6 you carry in the video games. Your active Pokemon can attack their active Pokemon, and they can attack yours. But every attack has an energy cost, which is where those energy cards come into play from earlier. But you can only attach 1 energy per turn. So let's have a quick look at my beat up old Venusaur card. He has 100 HP, and his attack does 60 damage. But to use that attack, you've got to attach 4 grass energies, which means you've got to wait 4 turns doing nothing before you can attack. And if you look up in the top left corner, you'll see that he's a stage 2 Pokemon. So in the TCG, you can't just throw down a Venusaur to start the battle. You've always got to start with a basic Pokemon, like Bulbasaur. Then once per turn, if your Pokemon can evolve, you can put down the next stage card on top of it to evolve it, like the stage 1 Ivysaur card. Then next turn, you can play down the stage 2 card, Venusaur. Most cards also have a weakness, which means it takes double damage from that type, or a resistance, which means it takes reduced damage from that type. And the last little bit over here on the right is the retreat cost, which is how many energies you have to discard to switch it out for another Pokemon. And the little white circles with the star inside represent colorless energy, which means you can use any type of energy for that. The discard pile is where all your used trainer cards and any Pokemon that have been knocked out end up. Now there's a lot of different cards which do a lot of different things, but that's a very basic rundown of how the game functions. If you already know how to play and you didn't skip this bit, let me know everything that I missed down in the comments. It's good for the algorithms. So just like in the video games, there's different versions of Pokemon cards that come out every so often, but there's like a lot of them. Instead of getting a new game every year or 2, we get around 4 new sets every year, plus a bunch of promo sets and extra little mini sets like the Macca sets that come out every now and then, which means we've got like 100 or so sets to get through. So let's do this.
Now you can play a part in the ultimate Pokemon battle. Trainer versus trainer. The Pokemon trading card game. All the creatures, all the battles. Grab your starter pack and start playing the Pokemon trading card game. Good clean fun.
The first set ever released was the base set. We got 69 Pokemon cards ranging from Weedles and Caterpies to Charizards and Mewtwo's. We got 26 trainer cards, which if you're up to date with the TCG today, you'll notice are all trainer cards. No supporters, no stadiums, none of that. You can play as many of these as often as you like, which at the time was pretty crazy. And finally, 6 energy cards. That's right, only 6. If you've only ever played the video games, this might seem kinda wild, but back in the days of the base set, there were only 6 different types of Pokemon. Well, actually 7. You got Fire, Water, Grass, Psychic, Fighting, Lightning, not Electric, for whatever reason in the TCG, they call it Lightning. And the 7th type, Colorless. For these guys, you can use any of the other 6 types of energy, or the first ever double energy card, double colorless energy. Now, to get your hands on some of these cards in 1999, you could head out to your local toy shop and grab yourself one of the theme decks. Zap, Blackout, Overgrowth, and Brushfire, all of which came with a standard set of cards inside that were ready to play, some damage counters, and a lovely Chansey coin. Or you could grab yourself a 2-player starter set, which was ready to go for, as the name suggests, 2 players. But all of these decks came with the same cards. If you wanted the rare ones, like say a Charizard, you had to grab yourself a booster pack, which came with 11 random cards, including 1 random energy and 1 random rare card. All the cards from the base set all the way through to today are separated into common, uncommon, rare, and holo rare, plus a bunch of other ones later, but that's not important right now. And if it's not in a theme deck, it's in a booster pack. So the base set was kind of unique in that it got quite a few different printings while they were sort of figuring everything out. The first printing was obviously the first edition cards, which have a nice little first edition stamp on the left here. But shortly after, or around the same time depending on who you ask, was the Shadowless run, which looked exactly the same as the first editions, but without the first edition stamp. The reason that we call them Shadowless is because the next run, the Unlimited run, added in a little drop shadow around the frame. Then finally, there was a 4th printing, which was identical to the Unlimited cards, except for the copyright date at the bottom, which reads 1999 to 2000 instead of just 1999. There were also a bunch of weird misprinted or error cards that came out of the base set, which are worth some good money today. A few examples of this are Blastoise without the word stage, Ninetales without any attack damage, Wartortle with itself in its evolution box, and everyone's favorite, Red Cheeks Pikachu. Now, if you've got any old cards lying around, chances are they're probably from the Unlimited run and aren't worth dumb money, but you never know. One card that trips people up real good is Machamp, because every single Machamp is a first edition Machamp. The reason for this is that the Machamp was only ever available in the 2-player starter set and not in the normal 11-card booster packs, so unfortunately your first edition Machamp isn't the gold mine you might have hoped for. There is actually one exception to this. There was a Machamp card in the Trainer Deck A that was non-holo and didn't have a first edition stamp, but these were never for sale and probably not collecting dust in your cupboard right now. Since the base set only has 69 Pokemon cards, obviously we can't have all 150 Pokemon at this point, but weirdly, there are a few evolution lines that were just left unfinished. We got a Pidgey and a Pidgeotto, but no Pidgeot. A Caterpie and a Metapod, but no Butterfree. We got a Dratini and a Dragonair, but no Dragonite. Ghastly and a Horner, no Gengar. A Drowsy, no Hypno. Doduo, no Dodrio. And a Sandshrew, but no Sandslash. Ponyta, but no Rapidash. Koffing, but no Weezing. And a Clefairy, but no Clefable. The second set was the Jungle expansion, which added in 63 new Pokemon cards and 1 trainer card, the Pokeball. It was also the first set to introduce holo and non-holo variants of the same Pokemon card. So even though there were 63 new Pokemon cards, there were actually only 47 new Pokemon because 16 of those cards were just the same Pokemon, just holo and non-holo versions. Actually only 45 new Pokemon because both Pikachu and Electrode already had cards in the base set, which makes them the first Pokemon ever to be printed in 2 different sets. We also completed some evolution lines in Jungle. We got a Pidgeot, a Butterfree, a Clefable, a Rapidash, and a Dodrio. Still missing quite a few though. The Jungle set also introduced the idea of pre-release promos with the pre-release Clefable. Legend has it that the pre-release Raichu cards were given out to the Wizards of the Coast staff as a pre-release card for the base set, but that's a whole other story, and I think we'll save the history of pre-release and promos cards for another day. Next up is Fossil, which is the smallest set ever released with only 62 cards, including all Pokemon and trainers. But we did finally complete the Pokédex, at least the original 150. We finally got our Gengar, Dragonite, Hypno, Weezing, and Sandslash. And we got some second more printings of a few cards, so now we have 2 Magneton, 2 Zapdos, 2 Raichu, and also 2 Ghastly and 2 Horners. The next one was a weird set, Base Set 2, which was pretty much just a reprint set made up of most of the cards from Base Set and Jungle. It was only ever released in English, and it was the first set ever to not have a first edition run. The Team Rocket set was a little more interesting. It introduced Dark Pokemon, not Dark-type Pokemon, we're not there yet, but it was also the first set to introduce a little bit of controversy in the TCG. See, dark Pokemon are kind of like evil Pokemon that were raised by Team Rocket. And the idea of the face of the franchise turning into an evil Raichu wasn't really doing it for Nintendo, so they were considering scrapping this card altogether. What they ended up doing was creating the first ever secret rare card. So every card has a little number on it at the bottom. Base set Pikachu is number 58 out of 102. It's the 58th card in a set of 102 cards. Jungle Pikachu is number 60 out of a set of 64 cards. The Rocket set had 82 cards. Or did it? All the cards in the set are numbered out of 82, including Raichu, number 83 of 82, the secret rare. We also got our first ever Holo Energy card with the Holo Rainbow Energy, and our first ever Holo Trainer cards with Here Comes Team Rocket and Rocket Sneak Attack. We also got some third printings of a few cards, so we now have 3 Magneton, 3 Electrode, and 3 Raichu. No idea why they're all lightning types, but I like to think it's an apology for making me say lightning type instead of electric type. Moving on! Now I'm going to lump Gym Heroes and Gym Challenge in together, because they're basically the same set, but they're based on the original 8 gym leaders and feature some of their Pokemon, like Blaine's Arcanine or Lieutenant Surge's Raichu. Yes, that is 4 Raichu cards now. We also got our first little variants in the layouts of the cards. The placement of the retreat cost has moved under the weakness and resistance to make space for the trainer's mugshot. We also lost the flavor text, which is the little bit at the bottom that gives you a bit of extra detail about the Pokemon, like how Charizard spits fire that is hot enough to melt boulders. We did get our first ever 5 energy attack cost with Phoenix Flame from Blaine's Moltres. And we got our first ever stadium cards, where you can only have 1 in play at any time, and they add a little extra mechanic to the game that you can use to your advantage. We also had to change a little bit of artwork from the Japanese release of the trainer cards for Misty's Tears, which I think is probably fair enough, Sabrina's Gaze, because it kind of looks like she's flipping you off, and Koga's Ninja Trick, because it was a little bit Hitlery. And that brings us to the end of the Gen 1 run of the Pokemon trading card game.
Metal Energy now makes the Pokemon trading card game even harder to resist. Neo Genesis. You can master the game.
Neo Genesis was the first set to feature Gen 2 Pokemon, and just like the Gen 2 games, it made a lot of changes. Firstly, we got a few aesthetic alterations on the cards. The previous stages were now in these little bubbles instead of the pointy angry star things of the base set. We got a little bit of a swoopy thing going on up top, and we added a couple more little swoopy things behind the weakness and resistance. And we've got black HP text instead of red. But the flavor text is back. And just like the games, we see the introduction of dark and steel types. But the TCG is weird, so they call them darkness and metal. The even weirder thing is that they didn't bring in basic energy cards for Darkness and Metal, so the only way to use their attacks was to use special energy cards or rainbow energy, both of which you can only have 4 of in your deck, so that was weird. We also got our first baby Pokemon that had their own separate little mechanic where the opponent had to flip a coin for every attack, which meant these things were very popular in the competitive scene. We also got our introduction to the first subclass of trainer cards, Pokemon Tools, which are kind of like held items that are still used in the game today. Neo Discovery introduced Unknown to the TCG, with Unknown A, E, I, O, U, D, F, M, and N, which means you could spell the word fondue, and not much else. Neo Revelation completed the Gen 2 Pokedex all the way up to Celebi, and gave us our first ever Shining Pokemon. Again, not shiny because the TCG is weird, but we've got Shining Magikarp and Shining Gyarados, which of course had their shiny colors on the cards. Weird little side note here, for some reason this set never had any theme decks. Don't know why, it just didn't. Now, Neo Destiny was the final set ever to have first edition cards. After this, there was no first edition printings, no first edition symbols, none of that. It also brought back Dark Pokemon, and was the first set ever to have Light Pokemon. It was also the only set ever to have Light Pokemon. It also had more Shining Pokemon, and every single letter of Unknown, except Unknown R. Don't know why, it just didn't. Before moving into the next era of the TCG, we've got one more set, the Legendary Collection, which was just a reprint of some cards from the first 4 sets, but it did introduce 2 new things to the TCG. Box toppers, which were oversized cards that you got when you bought a booster box, and reverse holos, which are exactly what they sound like. Instead of the art being hollow, it's reversed, and the rest of the card is full holo foil. Expedition was a big deal. It was the biggest set so far with 165 cards, and it made a pretty dramatic change to the cards. This was the first set of the e-reader cards, which you probably notice have a pretty hectic yellow strip running down the left side and across the bottom of the cards. Swipe one of these cards through an e-reader and you'll get the Pokédex starter, maybe a little mini game, some music, or maybe even a hidden attack for the Pokemon. But unfortunately for Nintendo, no one bought an e-reader, so the function was pretty much pointless. Looking at the cards a little closer, the frame for the artwork is all swoopy now, and we've got an even bigger swoopy bit under the weakness and resistance. Everything's been kind of squished to make room for the e-reader, and as a result, we've lost the flavor text again. We also got a new look for the energy cards, which also gained a big fat border for the e-reader code. Now, on all the previous cards, some Pokemon had a Pokemon Power, which did all kinds of things from allow extra energy attachment to completely shutting down certain Pokemon. In Expedition, this was split into Pokebodies and Pokepowers. Basically, a Pokebody is a passive ability, and a Pokepower is an active ability. We also got our first ever supporter cards, which were trainer cards that were really good, but you could only use 1 per turn. And we got one of the biggest changes in the history of the TCG. Booster packs dropped down from 11 cards per pack to 9 cards per pack, which was apparently a result of the extra cost of producing the e-reader cards, but no one was using the e-reader. So this set was a little bit of the beginning of the end for Wizards of the Coast. The next set was Aquapolis with a whopping 186 cards, the biggest set so far and a record that would hold for 15 years. This was also the introduction of Crystal Pokemon, which were all colorless Pokemon that changed type depending on which kind of energy you attached, but required 3 different types of energy to attack. Skyridge was the last set ever released by Wizards of the Coast. It was also the last set to include Crystal Pokemon, and more importantly, it was the last set to include Kadabra. So in 2000, an Israeli psychic named Uri Geller, who apparently bends spoons with his mind, sued Nintendo claiming that they had appropriated his identity. Pokemon and Nintendo have always denied this, but agreed not to print any more Kadabra cards until the matter was settled. In 2020, the psychic spoonbender Uri Geller finally dropped the case. Now, there haven't been any more Kadabra cards printed since then, so as of right now, this is the last one.
A highly anticipated new arrival. E-reader bonus. Advance your game. Pokemon E-Trading Card Game EX Ruby and Sapphire have arrived. Get on board.
EX Ruby and Sapphire was the first set ever printed by the Pokemon Company. After the Wizards of the Coast license ran out, Pokemon just decided to keep it all in-house, and that's where it's been ever since. This was the introduction to Gen 3 Pokemon, but it also introduced a whole new mechanic, Pokemon EX. Little EX, big EX comes later. These were really strong, overpowered Pokemon, but they were the first Pokemon ever to give up 2 prize cards when they were knocked out. We also got our first major rule change to how the game was played. Before this set, if you went first, you could do whatever you wanted to first turn. You could use trainer cards, evolve, attack, there were no restrictions. But in this set on, if you go first, you cannot draw a card and you cannot play supporter cards. Still a long way off the first turn restrictions in the game today, but we'll get there. We also got a pretty dramatic aesthetic overhaul here. The big yellow borders were gone. The art frame was back to a rectangular shape and was silver now. The previous evolution was moved down to the bottom left of the frame to make room for a new little swoopy bit up top where the Pokemon's name goes. But the swoopy now changes a little bit depending on if it's a basic, a stage 1, or a stage 2 Pokemon. We got a little dotty pattern thing going on in the background here, and we kept a little bit of the e-reader functionality down the bottom, but it's only for Pokédex entries now. Speaking of which, not only do we still not have the flavor text, but they've removed the basic description from the cards, so now I have no idea how much Wailord weighs. Speaking of Wailord, see how this bad boy has 120 HP? Well, this is still the highest HP for any Pokemon in the game, which was set by Chansey all the way back in the base set. But then, along comes EX Sandstorm and Waylord EX with a massive 200 HP, which is also the first card ever to have a 5 energy retreat cost. Speaking of energies, they dropped the chunky yellow borders and gave us these guys. Next up was EX Dragon, which was the first set to introduce a weakness to colorless attacks, because this set also introduced a lot of dragon types who are all colorless. They did get 2 resistances though. EX Team Magma and Team Aqua brought back the Team Rocket vibes, but instead of Dark Pokemon, we got Team Magma Pokemon and Team Aqua Pokemon, both of which had special little card designs and trainer cards to go along with each team. It was also the final set to offer any e-reader functionality, but it was the first set with Dual-type Pokemon. We got 12 Dual types, all of which were part Darkness, but we did have Dual types. EX Hidden Legends gave us some more Dual types, but this time we got a couple that weren't part Darkness. We got the Dual Steel and Psychic Jirachi and Metagross. And because we no longer had to worry about the e-reader, the ugly yellow strip at the bottom was gone. We also got some pretty crazy holo patterns for the Regis. EX Fire Red and Leaf Green was a weird one. It was all Gen 1 Pokemon to tie in with the video games, but it did give us a bunch of Gen 1 EX Pokemon. EX Team Rocket Returns was the last set ever to have Dark Pokemon, but it also introduced Pokemon Star. Not V-Star, we're not there yet, but we got all 3 Gen 3 starters in their shiny colors popping out of the image frame. And a new mechanic. You can't have more than 1 Pokemon Star in your deck. EX Deoxys finally completed the Gen 3 Pokédex with the addition of 6 different Deoxys cards and gave us a few more Pokemon Stars with a Latias, Latios, and Rayquaza. So EX Emerald isn't really a proper set brought over here from Japan. It's actually made up of promos and little mini sets and was only ever made to tie in with the game being released for the Game Boy Advance. We did get some more Deoxys though. EX Unseen Forces is another weird one that's made up of mostly Gen 2 Pokemon, but we do finally get Unknown R, which means that we have every single Unknown and you can finally play Scrabble with Pokemon cards. EX Delta Species went a little crazy and added in a whole backstory about the Holon region and scientists experimenting on Mew that created the Delta Species, and they all have different typings and we do not have time to get into this whole thing. But what we do get is our first Pokemon Star that is a fully evolved Pokemon, Metagross. But it's also a basic Pokemon, which means in the TCG, you don't need to evolve it from Beldum, you can just slap this bad boy straight down. EX Legend Maker continues the story of the Holon region and takes place in the Mirage Forest. But we got EXs, we got Stars, we got Delta Species, there is a lot going on here. Next up is EX Holon Phantoms, and it just keeps getting crazier. We got Delta Species that are Pokemon Stars, we got Dual-type Delta Species, it's getting very hectic. EX Crystal Guardians gives us our first Delta Species EX, but it also gives us Alakazam Star, which in case you forgot, we don't have Kadabra anymore, so the only way Alakazam can be in the TCG is if he doesn't need to evolve. And just like that Metagross we talked about earlier, Alakazam Star is a basic Pokemon, so he doesn't need to evolve. Take that, Uri Geller! EX Dragon Frontiers is the final set to feature Delta Species, but it goes all out with a Lightning Feraligatr, a Fighting Meganium, and a Psychic Typhlosion. Plus, we get a Dark-type Delta Species Charizard Star. This run of EX sets that's a lot. There's a lot going on here. Now, the final EX set is another filler set, kinda like EX Emerald, but this time, the cards were pretty much all originally English, and were only ever available in Japan online for like 2 weeks. It was released to delay the next set to line up with the new games coming out, but EX Power Keepers is the last set in the EX run, and the last set to feature Pokemon EX and Pokemon Stars.
Brand new Pokemon, new evolutions, a whole new look. Pokemon trading card game Diamond and Pearl. The adventure begins.
Diamond and Pearl made a lot of changes, but the most important one, flavor text is back. We move the previous evolution back up to the top left of the artwork. We keep the swoopies, but lose the little dots and all remnants of the e-reader. And every Pokemon now has a level. Empoleon is level 42, Infernape is level 40, and Torterra is level 45. Now this doesn't actually mean anything in terms of gameplay, but we did get another rule change. From this set on, if you go first, you can draw a card, but you can't play any supporters or stadiums or trainer cards of any kind. But we are back up to 10 cards per booster pack. Now we did get a few more new things. First of all, we got basic energy for darkness and metal, which means you can have as many as you want in your deck. The energy cards also got a little halo glow thing, but otherwise look pretty much identical. We also got our first Pokemon with free attacks. As you can see on the starters here, no energy is required to use Peck, Tackle, or Scratch. We got a new mechanic for weakness. It was no longer just double damage, but an amount specified on the card, like Luxray here, taking an extra 30 damage from fighting types. And we also got our introduction to level X Pokemon, which were basically like a stage 3 evolution. They were super strong like the EX Pokemon, and they kind of popped out of the frame a little bit like the Pokemon Stars, but they only gave up 1 prize card, which means we no longer have any cards that give up 2 prizes at this point. They can also use any attack from their previous stage as well as their own attacks, but you did have to evolve 3 times just to get one, so they took a bit of setup to actually get going in a game. Mysterious Treasures brought held items into the TCG. There were only berries at this point, but there was plenty more to come later on. And we got another Alakazam, but this time it was a stage 2, so you had to evolve it. But we still didn't have Kadabra, so to get around this, they gave Abra the move Ultra Evolution, which allowed it to evolve straight up to Alakazam and skip Kadabra entirely. Secret Wonders brought in Evolution Stones as held items, which meant you could evolve the Pokemon the same turn that you played it. Great Encounters gave us level X's for Dialga and Palkia. And Majestic Dawn was another filler set made up of Japanese promos and didn't really do anything very interesting, but we did get some new held items. Legends Awakened gave us a Mewtwo level X. And Stormfront brought back some shinies, but this time they weren't Pokemon Stars or Shining Pokemon or anything like that. They were just reverse holos with their shiny colors. We also got a very familiar looking Charizard, and this was the final set to have held items. Platinum gave us our first Shaman card and a couple of new mechanics. We got our introduction to Pokemon SP, who were all basic Pokemon that brought back in the standard 2 times weakness, but had a whole bunch of trainer cards that only work for Pokemon SP to help them out. And we got our introduction to the Lost Zone, which was like a second discard pile that cards could not be brought back from. They were gone forever. We also got a few reprints of old cards. We got the main 3 attackers of the Haymaker deck, which was probably the best deck in the early days of the TCG, but that's a story for another day. Rising Rivals brought us a Gym Leader Pokemon and Elite Four Pokemon, all of which were also SP Pokemon. So we got things like Floatzel GL SP and Heracross 4 SP, and another Alakazam. Alakazam 4 Level X SP, which sounds like something Elon Musk would name his kid. Supreme Victors gave us more ridiculous names with the introduction of Pokemon C and Pokemon FB, which belong to Cynthia and Frontier Brains respectively. So we got cards like Garchomp C Level X SP and Staraptor FB Level X SP. We did get some more shinies though. Platinum Arceus was the first set released in the Diamond, Pearl and Platinum era to feature Arceus, completing the Gen 4 Pokedex. But we didn't get 1, we didn't get 2, we got 12 different Arceus cards, including 3 different Level X cards. There is a cool little ripple effect across the 9 basic cards if you line them up all in a row. And we got a few more shinies. Heart Gold and Soul Silver gave us another new card design. We mixed up the swoopy bits up top again and removed the swoopy bits at the bottom of the card. We moved the pre-evolution bubble up a bit and we've dropped the Pokemon's level from the card entirely. And the yellow borders that have been there since the beginning of the game have changed to like gold and silver sort of sandy textured borders. We also brought back the normal 2 times weakness for every Pokemon. We did get some really cool new energy cards that had a little scenic backdrop and Pokemon silhouettes in the background. We got a Celebi on the grass energy, Ho-Oh on the fire energy, Lugia on the water energy, Ampharos on the lightning energy, Espeon on the psychic, Sudowoodo on the fighting, Umbreon for the dark energy, and Steelix for the metal energy. Now instead of Pokemon ABC Level X SP23, we now have Pokemon Prime, which function basically the same as any other card, but they look grumpy and they usually have better attacks, but otherwise, no special mechanics, no double prize Pokemon, none of that. We did get Pokemon Legends though, with Lugia and Ho-Oh. So the way that they worked was they were two separate cards that had to be played at the same time. But since they were stronger than the average bear, they gave up 2 prize cards, which we haven't seen since the EX days. We also got our first Alpha Lithograph, which were terrible cards competitively, but looked super cool. We also got a shiny Gyarados that wasn't a shining Gyarados or a Pokemon Star or a reverse holo or anything, it was just red for some reason. And supporter cards were no longer a subset of trainer cards, they were their own thing now. Unleashed gave us our first cards with multiple Pokemon on the card, in the form of some new Legends cards. We got Entei and Raikou Legend, Raikou and Suicune Legend, and Suicune and Entei Legend, all of which had to be played 2 at a time and gave up 2 prize cards. Undaunted gave us more multiple Pokemon Legend cards with Kyogre and Groudon Legend, and Rayquaza and Deoxys Legend. Then Triumphant followed suit and gave us Darkrai and Cresselia Legend, and Palkia and Dialga Legend. But more importantly, we got some new error cards, which hasn't happened in a long time. Both Psyduck and Weeping Bell require you to flip a coin instead of flip a coin, which was never corrected. And that is the end of the Heart Gold and Soul Silver block, but we've got one more set to go before we get into Black and White, because Call of Legends was another mostly reprint filler English only set, but it did give us some shiny cards for most of the legendaries.
Pokemon trading card game Black and White. 3 great pre-constructed decks. A whole new world of powerful Pokemon. You can choose your deck today. Pokemon Black and White, in stores now.
Black and White was the start of the Gen 5 era, and just like the DS games, you could only get Gen 5 Pokemon in the Gen 5 TCG, at least for now. The cards got another redesign, the pre-evolution Swoopy bubble was moved down a bit to make room for some more Swoopies, and we got an additional Swoopy border around the flavor text. Retreat cost was moved to the left of the card, and we were back to the standard yellow borders. The energy cards lost the silhouettes from Heart Gold and Soul Silver and replaced them with a sort of checkerboard pattern. We also got another change on the cards. Poker Bodies and Poker Powers, which had been separate since the Wizards of the Coast days, were now grouped back together and called Abilities. Supporters were demoted back to being a subset of trainer cards, and we got another rule change. If you go first, there are no restrictions. You can draw a card, you can use a trainer card, you can attack, you can do whatever you want. So this set gave us our first full art cards with Reshiram and Zekrom. But what we didn't get were special cards of any kind. We didn't get any level X's or EX's or legend cards. It was a little bit back to basics in Black and White. Side note, this was also when the Pokemon trading card game online was launched, but again, story for another day. Emerging Powers is another filler set made up of Japanese promos and leftovers, so we didn't get anything very exciting here, but what we did get was a new reverse holo pattern that was made up of the energy symbol for that card. Noble Victories came along with our first full art supporter card for N, and also a new fossil mechanic where you'll look at the bottom 7 cards of your deck, reveal a particular Pokemon you find there, and put it on your bench. It was a terrible mechanic that didn't work and only lasted for a few sets, but it did start here. We're also sticking exclusively to Gen 5 Pokemon from now, with the exception of secret rares and promos, but let's just ignore those. Now, everything changed when Next Destinies was released, because not only did we start getting some older gen Pokemon, but we got capital EX Pokemon. Now, these were all basic Pokemon that gave out 2 prize cards when knocked out, but they were very, very strong. They came in both normal cards and full art cards, but the normal cards weren't quite normal. The Pokemon was bursting out of the frames, and the yellow borders were replaced with extensions of the art. We also got our introduction to secret rare shiny Pokemon. Dark Explorers gave us a bunch more EX cards and full arts, but it also gave us our first ever secret rare trainer card with Pokemon Catcher and a couple more shinies too. Then, when Dragons Exalted was released, we got our first ever Dragon-type Pokemon, which was the first new type introduced since Neo Discovery. But we didn't get any Dragon Energy cards, so these guys had to use a bunch of different energy cards for their attacks, like Hydreigon needing a Psychic Energy, 2 Dark Energies, and a Colorless Energy to use Dragon Blast. We got a pretty unique error card in this set. The original print of Hoppip had the wrong flavor text. It had Skip Loom's flavor text, which was later corrected. We had a Magmortar that had to have its art changed from the Japanese release, because apparently the English-speaking world doesn't like staring down the barrel of a smoking gun. And we got our first shiny dragon that was actually a dragon type with Rayquaza. We also got our first proper mini set here with Dragon Vault. It only had 21 cards, they were all dragon types except for the 3 trainer cards, and you couldn't just buy booster packs of this like in any other set. You could only buy the blister packs, which came with 1 promo card, and 3 booster packs, which only had 5 cards each that were all holos. Now the mini sets are weird, but we'll keep the mini sets and promos and league battle decks and build and battle boxes and all that extra stuff for another video. Let's just stick to the main sets for this one. Boundaries Crossed gave us new forms of Kyurem with a black Kyurem and white Kyurem, both with EX versions as well. We also got some more full art supporters and some more shinies, but we also got A-Spec trainer cards, which were like super powerful item cards. Like this one here gives Black Kyurem EX 300 HP, which is ridiculous. But you could only have 1 A-Spec trainer card in your deck. Plasma Storm brought in a new type of card, Team Plasma cards, which had blue borders and a massive Team Plasma logo in the middle of the card. And a bunch of trainer cards that only work for the Team Plasma cards. They even brought in some Team Plasma EX cards and a Plasma Energy card. We got a secret rare shiny Blastoise, a secret rare shiny Charizard, but no Venusaur for whatever reason. The Charizard actually had a weird little error where it required 1 fighting energy to use Scorching Fire, which was later changed to Fire Energy. Plasma Freeze has a unique little gimmick where a lot of the cards had shards of ice in the artwork to tie in with the story of Black 2 and White 2, except Sandile. The ice melted because he's a little desert boy. Plasma Blast gave us our first Genesect cards in both the standard and full art cards, completing the Gen 5 Pokedex. We got our first Team Plasma A-Spec trainer cards with G-Scope and G-Booster, and a shiny Execute for some reason. Legendary Treasures was the final set of the Gen 5 run, and it was another reprint promo mishmash of a set, but it did give us our first ever gold full art cards with Reshiram and Zekrom. And it gave us a little mini set within the set called the Radiant Collection, which makes it sound like they'd be shinies, but they're not.
A new age of Pokemon begins. Legendary Xerneas and Yveltal clash in Pokemon Trading Card Game XY. Powerful EX and all-new Mega Evolution cards. In stores now.
X and Y was the first set released for Gen 6, and just like every other generation, we got a massive, dramatic redesign which completely changed the way the cards looked. No, actually, they looked exactly the same, which is the only time that that's ever happened. We did get our introduction to Mega Pokemon though, which were like evolutions for the EX Pokemon, but your turn ended when you evolved them. We got a Mega Blastoise EX, a Mega Venusaur EX, both of which use their Mega Evolution design from the 3DS game, but no Charizard. And if you're wondering what the Japanese text says, it's the attack name. So this says Crisis Vine, and this says Hydro Bombard. In the Japanese cards, it's flipped, and the English text is in the artwork. That's kind of cool. And for the first time since Wailord, way back in the EX Sandstorm days, we have a new record for the highest HP in the game, 230 on Mega Venusaur EX. This was also the introduction of the Fairy types, and we got a new basic Fairy Energy. Speaking of which, the energy cards did change, but we lost the checkerboards. Now, most of the Fairy types were pretty underwhelming, but we did get a Fairy type Xerneas EX. We also got another rule change here. If you go first, you cannot attack, which was probably the biggest rule change so far because for the first time ever, it was kind of better to go second. Flashfire gave us not 1, but 2 Charizard EX cards, and of course both Mega Charizard X and Mega Charizard Y. And I'm trying to avoid talking about the attack damage too much here because it varies so much depending on a million different factors, but Charizard's 300 damage from both Crimson Dive and Wild Blaze is one-shotting anything in the game. Flashfire also introduced secret rare Mega Pokemon, which were basically the same cards but with some gold accents, for both the Zards and Mega Kangaskhan EX. Furious Fist brought us the first full art Mega card with Mega Lucario EX, and a couple of secret rare Megas with Lucario and Heracross. And quick little side note here, Mega Lucario EX was the first card ever to be printed with the yellow A alternate card stamp. This is the original alternate art cards, which was slowly phased out and only ever really relevant to the high-level competitive games to prevent players using promo cards that had already been rotated out of the format. Cool? Okay. Phantom Forces gave us 2 more secret Megas with Manectric and Gengar, as well as a full art Mega for Mega Manectric EX. We also got our first and only silver full art with Dialga EX, and the introduction to Team Flare cards, which are very, very rare and were only ever released in this set. We also got the item cards Gengar Spirit Link and Manectric Spirit Link, which allow you to Mega Evolve without having to end your turn. So these cards were a big deal, and they started to bring them out for most of the Megas in the era. Primal Clash made a lot of changes. First of all, Wailord was back at the top with a massive 250 HP on Wailord EX. We got a Primal Groudon and Kyogre, both of which got Spirit Link cards to attack the turn they evolved, and they both use a new mechanic, the Ancient Trait, which is basically an ability that can't be turned off with trainer cards and other abilities. But they weren't the only ones to get these Ancient Traits. Sceptile, Macargo Fast, Ludicolo, Electrike, Electric, and plenty more all got these Ancient Traits, all of which had not quite a full art card, kind of like a 2/3 art card. Roaring Skies gave us a Mega Rayquaza EX and a very hectic full art card. We also got our first double Dragon Energy and a bunch more of these Ancient Traits. Ancient Origins introduced Hooper into the TCG, and we got secret rares of Shiny Primal Groudon, Kyogre, and Rayquaza. Breakthrough added in another new mechanic, Pokemon Break, which were like an extra evolution, but you place them sideways on top of the previous card, and then you could use both the new attacks of the Break card and the attacks of the previous card. We still had all the EXs and Mega EXs coming through, but no more Ancient Traits. Breakpoint was more of the same, lots of Break cards, lots of EX cards, and lots of Mega EX cards. Fates Collide brought in Zygarde with its 10% form, 50% form, and 100% form. But the crazy thing is, this set came out before Sun and Moon were released, which means this might have been the first time a lot of people saw Zygarde's 100% form, because this guy was not in the X and Y 3DS games. We also got ourselves another Alakazam, and a Mega Alakazam EX, and a secret rare Alakazam EX, so the lack of Kadabra is not keeping this guy out of the game. Storm Siege gave us a Volcanion, completing the Gen 6 Pokédex. It also brought back Dual types, with a Volcanion EX being Dual Fire and Water type. Plus, all the Dual types had their shiny colorings on the card, like Shiftry, Volcarona, Galvantula, Bisharp, and Azumarill, as well as Mega Gardevoir EX and Mega Steelix EX. The final set in the X and Y block is Generations, which kind of feels like a promo set, but is actually part of the main set. It was released as a 20th anniversary celebration for the TCG, and we got a massive amount of reprints from the base set with an updated card design that looks about halfway between the X and Y cards and the base set cards. All the Pokemon got updated attacks and abilities so they could actually be played against the newer cards, and Clefairy's typing was updated so it's actually a Fairy type now. We got some classic trainer cards that look a lot more like the base set cards than the X and Y trainer cards, like Devolution Spray, Energy Retrieval, Switch, Potion, Super Potion, and Professor Oak. But a few of them have been updated to supporter cards, so you can't just play as many as you want every turn like back in the Wizards of the Coast days. We got full arts for Brock's Grit and Misty's Determination, as well as a whole bunch of EXs, Mega EXs, and Break cards for the first generation Pokemon. They even kept some of the unfinished evolution lines intact, with a Ghastly and a Haunter, but no Gengar, Drowsy but no Hypno, Sandshrew but no Sandslash, Ponyta but no Rapidash, Koffing but no Weezing, and Clefairy but no Clefable.
Powers of Sun and Moon unite. Witness the awesome power of Pokemon GX in Pokemon trading card game Sun and Moon. In stores now.
Sun and Moon came out and finally changed up the layout of the cards. Not much though. We switched from a bubble for the previous stage to an octagon. We lose the swoopies up top completely, but we still have the two little black bars right here so that we know it's a stage 2. We replace all the sharp corners with these little beveled edges and lose the swoopy frame down the bottom too. That is all the swoopies gone. We get these little bar things for the weakness and resistance and retreat cost, and the set symbol is now on the left. But really, not a massive change in the card layouts between these two sets. We do get new energy cards. We lose the little Triforce swoopy things and replace it with a little glow and a coffee stain. We also get a whole new type of card with a whole new type of mechanic. Pokemon GX. So these are the big cards of the Sun and Moon era. They all get massive HP and strong attacks, and they give out 2 prize cards. But these cards aren't all basics. You gotta evolve up to them. But you do get 1 GX move per game, which is a super strong move that usually has extra effects. Think of it like a Z move in the video games, but you don't have to dance to use it. We get our first Alolan forms in this set, we get a bunch of full art supporter cards, we get a bunch of full art GX cards, and for the first time ever, full art rainbow cards, and a couple of sneaky full art shinies with secret rares Espeon and Umbreon. Guardians Rising started to go a bit crazy with the secret rares. We got a heap of full arts and supporter full arts, but we also got 15 full art rainbow cards, 11 of these golden trainer cards, 4 not full art shinies, 7 full art shinies, and 2 of these sort of golden silhouette things. And a lot of these cards were yellow A alternate cards, which again meant pretty much nothing, but it was still a thing at this point. By the time Burning Shadows came around, we were getting pretty much the same amount of normal cards as we were getting crazy rainbow full art golden shiny cards. But that was just the start of it, because Crimson Invasion introduced Ultra Beast, and they all got GX cards, and Alt Art GX cards, and rainbow cards, and shiny cards. But it started to chill out a little bit with Ultra Prism. Don't worry, we still got 9 rainbows, 9 gold cards, and 3 full art shinies. But we also got a new type of card, Prism Star. They were strong Pokemon trainers and energy cards that you could only have a 1 of each in your deck. But the Lost Zone is back. If you discard a Prism Star card, it goes to the Lost Zone and is gone forever. But we also got our reintroduction to fossil Pokemon with the mechanics back to normal, where you just evolve them from a fossil rather than searching the bottom 7 cards of your deck and just hoping that it's there. Forbidden Light brought us the first Arceus card that we've seen in a while, but it was not the last time we'd see Arceus. Celestial Storm gave us some really cool reprints of some old cards from the Neo series, some E-Reader cards, and some EX series cards, all updated to fit in with the current format. We even saw a reprint of the first ever Holo Energy card, Rainbow Energy. And finally, the record set way back in the E-Reader days by Aquapolis is beaten. Lost Thunder comes in with a new record for the largest set ever released, with a whopping 236 cards, most of which were quickly forgotten because then Team Up came in and introduced Tag Team Pokemon GX, which all had 2 Pokemon that shared at least 1 type between them on 1 card. And these were the first cards ever to give up 3 prize cards. They also had an extra little mechanic for their GX moves, where if you had any extra energy attached, the attack did an additional effect of some kind. And Wailord came back swinging with Magikarp and Wailord GX, breaking its own record with 300 HP. And of course, we got the regular cards, the full art cards, the alt art cards, and the secret rare rainbow cards. Unbroken Bonds gave us a whole bunch more tag team cards, then Unified Minds came in with some pretty crazy team-ups. We got Alolan forms, we got Megas, we got a Raichu teaming up with a Raichu. It was a wild time. It also broke Lost Thunder's record with 258 cards, but that didn't last long because the next set, Cosmic Eclipse, has 271 cards. Actually, just quickly before the massive Cosmic Eclipse set came out, we actually got another mini set, except even though it was a mini set, Hidden Fates has 163 cards, which is not very many at all. Now, Cosmic Eclipse did a few new things. It brought us the first Tag Team Supporter cards, and the first 3 Pokemon Team-Up card with Togepi, Cleffa, and Igglybuff. Well, actually, the mini set Hidden Fates had a triple Team-Up card with Moltres, Zapdos, and Articuno, but again, story for another day. Cosmic Eclipse had the infamous ADP, Arceus, Dialga, and Palkia GX. It also gave us our first look at what would later become the Trainer Gallery with these gorgeous full art cards depicting Pokemon and their trainers.
Here they come. Witness the grace and majesty in the Pokemon trading card game, Sword and Shield.
Sword and Shield was the first set released for Gen 8, and they did make a few changes to the card layout. All the edges become a little softer and more rounded. We have the return of the swoopy bit up top, and we have the addition of the Regulation D mark down in the bottom left there next to the set symbol, which helps to identify which cards are currently legal for the standard format of competitive Pokemon. As of today, anything D and up is nice and legal. Sword and Shield made a few more changes to the game. They scrapped the Fairy type completely, so now all Fairy types are Psychic types in the TCG. And they swapped the Poison types from being Psychic in the TCG to Darkness. We got another new rule that if you go first, you cannot attack or play a supporter card, and Resistance got a buff. Since Diamond and Pearl, if a Pokemon resisted another type, it would take 20 less damage from attacks, but now it's 30 less damage. We also got some new energy cards where we drop the Copy Stain and add in a little glowy swoopy thing. We also got the introduction of Pokemon V and Pokemon V Max. So Pokemon V are all basic Pokemon, as in you don't need to evolve into them from anything. They all have massive HP and good attacks, but they give up 2 prize cards. Pokemon V Max are kind of like Gigantamax in the video games. They evolve from Pokemon V, get really big, get massive HP stats, and do massive damage. But they give up 3 prize cards. And finally, someone has taken down the king of HP. Snorlax VMAX comes in with a ridiculous 340 HP, breaking Wailord's epic run of HP dominance. Now, we don't go as crazy as the GX days, but we do get a whole bunch of full art cards, some full art trainers, some full art rainbow cards, some golden trainer full arts, and 2 golden full art Pokemon cards with Zacian V and Zamazenta V. Rebel Clash gave the 3 starters their VMAX forms, and we get a few more full art trainers, including Giovanni, who is not from Sword and Shield at all, but I'm okay with it. Darkness Ablaze gave us Eternatus VMAX, who matched the HP record set by Snorlax, which still hasn't been beaten. Champion's Path was another mini set, but it was mostly made up of leftover Japanese cards that hadn't made it into any of the proper sets yet, but we do get a sneaky shiny Charizard V as a secret rare. Vivid Voltage introduced a new type of card, Amazing Pokemon, which don't really do anything special, but they have this little amazing rare stamp, and they're all crazy colors. Plus, all their attacks are amazing. Shining Fates was the biggest mini set ever released. Technically, it's a special expansion, not a mini set, but it is a whopping 195 cards, most of which are just reprint cards, but they're shiny. Battle Styles brought in 2 new mechanics, sort of. Single Strike and Rapid Strike Pokemon, with all kinds of Single Strike or Rapid Strike trainer cards to go with them. Plus, they get a nice little Single Strike or Rapid Strike badge on the card, which was all done to tie in with the Isle of Armor DLC for Sword and Shield on the Switch, which features Urshifu, which had 2 forms, Single Strike and Rapid Strike. So obviously Urshifu gets both options in the TCG, as well as VMAX forms for both, and of course Full Art and Alt Art and Full Art Rainbow. This was also the first set designated Regulation E. Chilling Reign kept up the Single and Rapid Strike cards from the previous set, as well as taking inspiration from the Crown Tundra DLC and giving us Ice Rider Calyrex and Shadow Rider Calyrex, as well as a VMAX for both, and Full Art and Alt Art and Full Art Rainbow. We're also starting to get a lot more Full Art supporters at this point, and an Alt Art for almost every Pokemon V. Evolving Skies gave us VMAX cards for all of the evolutions, and it gave us the reintroduction of the Dragon type for the first time since Cosmic Eclipse. Now with no weakness because there is no Fairy type, and they also get a nice little claw mark up the top and a big old dragon silhouette right in the middle of the card. Now I know I said I wasn't going to talk about the mini sets too much, but Celebrations needs to be talked about. It was the 25th anniversary of the TCG, and they gave us a reprint set of cards from everything over the last 25 years. So we got a bunch of old legendaries like your Lugias and your Kyogres and your Zekroms, but it was also kind of 2 mini sets in one. because the first 25 cards were just straight reprints of old Pokemon in the new style, with the big old Pikachu head on the card. But the next 25 were reprinted in the original style of the cards, with the old layout and the old text and everything. So these are going to look a little familiar if you watch this whole video. But we got the original starter trio, just like they looked back in the Wizards of the Coast day. We got a Dark Gyarados, we got a Baby Cleffa, we got the original shiny card with Shining Magikarp, we got Team Magma Groudon, the dual fighting and dark type one, we got Mew EX, Little EX, we got a Fire type Gardevoir EX Delta species, we got Umbreon Star, looking beautiful in its shiny colors. We got a level 45 Claydol, which if you were playing the game back in the day, you would know was one of the most broken cards ever. We got a Luxray GL level X SP, and a Garchomp C level X SP. We got a Donphan Prime. We got the first ever full arts with a Reshiram and Zekrom. We got Mewtwo Capital EX. We got the Fairy type Xerneas EX. We got a Mega Rayquaza EX and Tapu Lele GX. I love this set so much, man. But I'll always remember the next set because it was the first pre-release I ever went to. Fusion Strike introduced Fusion Strike Pokemon, which functions similarly to Single and Rapid Strike Pokemon, but they have their own dedicated trainer cards to help them out, as well as attacks that rely on your other Fusion Strike Pokemon. We also got the first ever Pokemon that was Single Strike, Rapid Strike, and Fusion Strike all at the same time with Deoxys. It was also the biggest set ever released with 284 cards and was the first set to include code cards for the new Pokemon trading card game Live, which replaces the old Pokemon trading card game online. Brilliant Stars introduced Pokemon V-Star, which meant we got a whole new mechanic. Just like the V-Maxes, V-Stars evolved from Pokemon V, but they don't give up 3 prize cards, only 2. What they do have is a V-Star Power, which is kind of like the GX attacks in Sun and Moon, where you can only use 1 V-Star Power per game. But more importantly than that, we got our official introduction to the Trainer Gallery with 23 new cards with a whole separate numbering system that showed off some of the most beautiful full arts we've ever had with Pokemon and their trainers. It was generally the trainer that the Pokemon was most associated with in either the games or the anime. It was also the first set designated Regulation F. Astral Radiance kept on going with more Vs, more V-Maxes, more V-Star, and also brought in Radiant Pokemon, which were the newest version of Shinies. We get full holo cards with the shiny colors and a new rule. You can't have more than 1 Radiant card in your deck, just like the Pokemon Star from way back in the EX days. But more importantly than that, we get another 23 cards for the Trainer Gallery, and they are just as gorgeous as the last 23. We also got some new Pokemon from Legends Arceus. So as of recording this video, the next set is Lost Origin, which will continue on with the Vs and V-Maxes and V-Stars, as well as the Radiant Pokemon, and bring back the Lost Zone for the first time since Cosmic Eclipse. But more importantly than that, the Trainer Gallery is back, and I cannot wait to see what it looks like. Thank you so much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you next time. We got Entei? I'm going with Entei. We got Entei and Raikou Legend, Raikou and Suicune Legend, and fuck me.